on Yarun FM, Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 6 p.m.
If you just happen to be catching us, welcome to it. Good morning to you. Second hour, third and final hour of the show every single Sunday morning. We get into the health check, making sure that we keep ourselves physically and mentally fit in 2023. Plus 267-391-1066 is our studio line. So hit me up with a text or a voice note or call in if you happen to have a question for myself or Dr. Bugga today on the health check. And on the line, we are joined by one of my favorite voices to hear on a Sunday morning. The good doctor on the line with us right now is Dr. Bugga. Hi, Dr. B.
Hey, so how are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, I can see we're gradually phasing out of the hot summer and edging gradually into the Americans call it fall, we call it autumn, we call it, it's just cooling down.
Honestly, I think that's one of my favorite seasons. As long as it's not too hot, too cold, I think I'm okay.
Now, Goldilocks, it's called the Goldilocks zone.
Yes, sir. So how do you like to spend your Sundays, Doc? What do you usually do on a day like this one?
To be honest, most doctors spend Sunday just sleeping. We have such chaotic weeks, and I think, as part of our series, we ought to talk a little bit about what it is to be, the shades of being a doctor. I think people don't realize. Nobody asks the doctor, "How are you?" or nobody cares. Nobody cares for the caregiver. So we ought to talk about that as a tribute to some of our health professionals at some point. So generally, I'm just chilling. I'm just relaxing. I don't like to be interfered. I don't answer any calls except yours. So let's be blessed. So what we're going to do, so before we launch our new, if you like, Broken Body series, is just end off where Zoo was sort of left us hung and dry.
Yes.
We were talking about, we started the year talking about the sort of diseases that really impact the global population, from which we're no exception. And we talked about what we call the global burden of disease. This is one of the commonest causes of death worldwide. And we started by talking about heart disease and blood pressure. And today we're going to be talking about stroke. It's a dreaded condition. It really is something that people are afraid of. Where they hear the word, they look in the mirror and they see something is slanting or skew, and then they panic. And so it's really important to understand exactly what is a stroke and what is not a stroke. So that's the chat today in terms of still the commonest cause of death worldwide is heart disease, and one of the manifestations of heart disease is a stroke. And the commonest cause of stroke is actually unregulated or uncontrolled blood pressure. So this is really important, largely because most people out there don't believe they have blood pressure. And unfortunately, you've heard it before, we'll say it again, it's a silent condition. So it doesn't actually present with, people have this misconception that presents with headache or dizziness or, chest pain. It doesn't. It really is a secret silent serpent, I guess that's a nice word, where it sort of creeps into your system. And most people, unfortunately, say, you know what, I don't feel anything. Why should I take this pill? Which is the reason why people get strokes. Because a stroke is where the blood pressure is so high, it actually causes damage into the brain, because the brain is the first organ to receive the blood from the heart. So if the pressures generating are so high, it actually either bleeds into the brain because something breaks and ruptures, or the brain suffers from simply trauma from this. And this can go on and on and on. And only as recently, as the 1920s, where Franklin Roosevelt, one of the previous presidents of the United States, actually had a major stroke, and it was documented that his blood pressure before his death was over 200 millimeters of mercury. Normal blood pressure is 120. So as recent as that, people still didn't believe how important it was to control blood pressure. And this is the issue. People think, I feel fine, I'm not going to take my pills. And this is what we have in our clinics around the country. We are trying to convince people that, whether you're 20, 25 or 125, your blood pressure should be perfect. We used to believe as you got older, your blood pressure was allowed to rise, but it doesn't actually, that's not actually the case. And so whether you're 20 or 120, your blood pressure should be 120 by 80. This is the magic number.
Yes.
And if you look at people, I work partly in the public sector, you look at some of their outpatient cards and, a nurse has ringed a blood pressure of 140 by 90, but nothing's done about it. And they'll say, okay, come back in a couple of weeks' time. So 140 by 90, remembering that 120 by 80 is the normal pressure.
Yeah.
140 by 90, you lose 10 years of your life. Now, you don't lose it immediately, but you lose it gradually. And this is what's impacting our country, because we're aiming high in terms of, we're currently an upper middle income country. We're aiming for a high income country. We also have the trappings of an industrialized society where people really are stressed in lots of ways. And this is the cause of the blood pressure, and it's the cause of the consequences of stroke.
And Doc, you speak about President Franklin D. Roosevelt. I mean, that's the president of the United States, a former president of the United States. And we're talking about a common disease that afflicts the globe. Why exactly is stroke so common?
The reason is it's actually very simple, and it's exemplified by a really beautiful, elegant study done in Kenya, where they looked at the Maasai tribe as they migrated from their home, which is usually out there in a place called Kisumu. As they migrated into Nairobi, the closer they got to the city, the higher the blood pressure went.
Yes.
And the same applied to the Amazonian Indians in South America. The closer they went to Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo from the Amazon forest, what happened is their blood pressure went up. And the principal thing that changed was the consumption of salt.
Yes.
And a sedentary lifestyle. So when we move from the cattle post to the car, I mean, we've all done it. You can go out to Moraka, you can go out to Massimo, and you feel chilled. The moment you're coming back, you're thinking about tomorrow and the things on your tray that your boss wants to do, and the deadlines and the schmedlines and, meetings for schmeetings. And all this stuff actually raises your blood pressure. You don't exercise enough. You eat a lot of crappy food. You look at all the junk fast food signs that litter our highways. We should ban them, actually.
Yes.
Enticing you to eat all sorts of garbage. And these are the things that actually over time have raised people's blood pressure. Lack of exercise, obesity, increased salt intake, and preservatives. So this is the reason why it's gone up. And WHO estimates that the African continent is set to explode in terms of chronic disease, because we're catching up very quickly with our neighbors who in North America and Europe, who now have actually turned the tide and realized that these things are nasty, and they're going back to eating more organic foods, whereas we're going, you see all these drive-in places. I mean, I'm just horrified that people like to drive around the corner to pick or whatever it is,
Drive through.
So this is the issue, and so on this series we love to talk about things that you can that can empower and engage and enable you rather than a pill. Yes, once you have blood pressure, you may well be told that this blood pressure pill is for life, but it does not mean you don't change your lifestyle. I don't like talking about diets also, because diets you can come on and off, but lifestyle means a change in your lifestyle, because there is certainly amongst our population, certainly amongst the black population, we know that the black population is probably 4 to 5 times more salt sensitive than Caucasian populations. What does that mean? It means that for every teaspoon of salt that we consume on this continent, we raise our blood pressure risk 4 times more, because the kidneys are not able to remove that load of salt as the Caucasian population. So we need to start avoiding things that are processed. Most processed foods stay on the shelf for a long time because they contain preservatives, and one of the preservatives is salt. And it's in your bread, and it's in your crackers, and it's in your pizza, and it's in your, fast food takeaway. It's loaded. In fact, unfortunately, Botswana are addicted to letswai. And you see people reaching for the salt container before they've even tasted the food.
Before you even taste the food.
You can see it, and you'll just think, Kante, what are you doing? So this is the issue. And the second, of course, is exercise. We keep coming back to this again and again. You've got to take on all these things, because you can't change your genes. If So-so's mom and dad had blood pressure, or somebody in the family has blood pressure, you can't change that you are the father you are the son of Mr. Senior So-so. So you have to change the environment in which those genes operate. So if there's a blood pressure history in your family, you need to take charge in your 20s and 30s to prevent the problem happening in 30 or 40 years, because that's when it hits you. You pay later for your sins today.
Yes, and Doc, we're talking about all of these, probably like talking about the kind of people that would get a stroke. And I hear you talking about all of these things that we eat, the way that we treat our lives and our bodies. Is there a way to get a stroke if you keep a good body, you keep a good diet, and everything is okay and you're doing everything well? But is there a way to still get a stroke?
It is possible. It's not very common. So the majority of people that we see with our chronic diseases are actually there because of the choices they've made in their lifestyle. But yes, there are congenital, which means you're born with abnormalities in your circulation. For example, there may be narrowings in your arteries. There may be a blood vessel in your brain that is not actually formed properly and is very soft and is prone to rupture. We call that a subarachnoid hemorrhage, where you just suddenly die. These do occur, but they're really uncommon. And I tend to try not to labor on those, because people will think, I'm going to have a stroke. I'm going to have a stroke. I'm trying to say that, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So it really is, if your genes are the bullets in your gun, the thing that triggers that gun is the environment. And so the majority of the blood pressure that we see, and unfortunately, so I've been practicing for many, many years, and what we've seen is a younger and younger set of people developing blood pressure. Yeah. And we're shocked now, 16, 17, 18-year-olds developing blood pressure. And of course, when you're that age, you don't want to take any pills. You don't want to take any medicine. You're not going to comply to them because you have a teenage brain, and so we have all these issues. Just like the topic next week, which is diabetes, where we're actually trying to say to people, get real, listen to your body, take your medicines, do your exercise. Yes, it's a small percentage. I mean, if we have somebody also who is very young and has blood pressure, we make a really thorough examination in our hospitals to make sure we're not missing something easily curable. But unfortunately, in my experience, it's very rare that we come across something that is curable. And of course, one of the questions that people ask is, Naka, is this thing a curable condition? Sadly, at the moment, blood pressure is what we call polygenic, which means it's contributed towards by many genes. And so it's not just one gene that you can correct. And so unfortunately, not in my lifetime, maybe in yours and maybe some younger people out there will be a cure once we understand all the genes. But I think it's a combination of lifestyle, environment, food and stress. We can manage stress by understanding that we're stressed. We can manage diet by saying these are things I shouldn't put on my plate, and we can manage your weight by saying, I eat less, I intermittently fast, and I exercise. So these are time valued things that we've said. But the problem is things like walking. Walking is cheap, it's easy, it's free, it's safe, but people don't want to do it. You have to pay for it. If you had membership to walk, you'd do it because you don't want to throw away. This is the issue. People want pills and potions. They don't want lifestyle.
I think we seem to have lost Dr. B, but it seems like we got through the topic generally quite well. He was talking about stroke, and next week we're going to be talking about diabetes and every single thing that we need to do to make sure that we keep physically and mentally fit in 2023. Thank you so much, Dr. B, for being part of the conversation. I really appreciate you coming, taking your time just to make sure to educate Botswana and every single person around us about the things that we need to do to make sure that we live a better life in 2023. This life is short, guys. Anytime this life can flash before your eyes, make sure you're taking care of yourself and your body very well.
SOS with Soso. Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 6 p.m. on Yarun FM.
And that's how we wrap it up this afternoon.